Horton's Phantom Passenger. On the outskirts of the small town of Horton, England, there lies an abandoned station, overtaken by ivy and shrouded in legends. Horton Station closed in the 1940s after a series of unexplained accidents led to its abandonment. However, veteran engineers operating on lines passing through it tell stories of a passenger who occasionally appears on the darkest, foggiest nights, always at the same spot next to the decommissioned platform. One night in 1965, an engineer named Charles was working on the night train passing through the abandoned station. Charles was always skeptical, with little patience for the spooky tales his colleagues shared. He had passed by countless times without seeing anything, but that night, something felt different. The fog was so thick that he could barely see the tracks ahead, and the silence was chillingly profound. As the train slowed near Horton, Charles saw a figure standing on the platform. It was a man wearing a long coat and a hat, something that seemed straight out of the early 1900s. The man had his head tilted down and was standing with his back turned, as if waiting for something. Charles was startled. He knew the station was abandoned, and no one should have been there, especially so late at night. As he watched the man, he slowly lifted his head and turned to face Charles. His face was pale, and his eyes glowed unnaturally. Before Charles could blink, the man raised his hand and waved slowly. Charles tried to look away, but was paralyzed, captivated by the stranger's empty gaze. Then the man gave a disturbing smile, his lips thin and cold, before dissolving into the air as if made of mist. Charles reached his destination in shock, unable to describe what he had seen. When he shared his story with other workers, some laughed, but others warned him. Horton's passenger was known to older engineers. They said the man was the spirit of a passenger who had died there many years before, after falling from the platform in front of a train. Since then, he was seen wandering around the station, eternally trapped in that fateful moment. Some say his spirit haunts anyone who crosses his path, and that Charles was lucky to escape unharmed. The Silence Car. In November 1978, 4 young Poles, Marek, Ania, Tomasz, and Katarzyna, were traveling from Warsaw to Krakow. The train was crowded, so they searched for a quieter car where they could rest. After a while, they found an isolated car with only a few dim lights and an eerie silence. Thinking they had found the perfect spot for a peaceful journey, they settled in and prepared to sleep. As the night wore on and the train passed through vast, dark fields, Marek suddenly woke up. He felt a dark presence around him, but when he looked at his friends, they were all asleep. Sitting in the darkness, he noticed a faint noise, a muffled sound that seemed distant, almost like crying or a soft moan. The sound grew louder, coming from the corridor ahead. Driven by an irrational curiosity, he got up and stepped into the dark corridor, his skin prickling. As he moved forward, he saw something that froze him. A ghostly figure, thin and pale, standing at the end of the corridor, with its face obscured by shadow. The figure seemed to be facing away, with hunched shoulders, and was surrounded by a low, mournful whisper, almost like weeping. Marek felt a sharp chill run through him, but couldn't move. Slowly, the figure began to turn toward him, revealing a face that looked like a blend of decayed flesh and empty, anguished eyes. Terrified, Marek retreated to his seat, sweating and pale, and woke up his friends. But when they looked into the corridor, there was no one there. Soon, the train reached its final station, and the group hurried off. After sharing their story, a station attendant revealed that they had spent the night in the Silence Car, known among engineers as haunted by the spirits of prisoners who had died during World War II. They were transported to labor camps and many perished there, trapped in a windowless car. Since then, it's said that the ghosts of these prisoners wander through the train, unable to find peace. The train that never arrived. In 1911, the world was shocked by the mysterious disappearance of the Zanetti luxury train in Italy. The journey was supposed to be a peaceful excursion from Rome to Milan, carrying over 100 wealthy passengers eager to enjoy the view of the Italian hills. It was an imposing train with lavish first-class carriages, attendants at hand, and renowned chefs to prepare exclusive meals. Everything seemed perfect that summer morning until the train entered a tunnel near Lombardo and never came out. After hours of waiting, authorities sent rescue teams, thinking a technical problem had occurred in the tunnel. However, upon entering, they found nothing. Not a single trace of the train, its passengers, or staff. The tunnel was completely empty. Over 100 people vanished, as if swallowed by time itself. Over time, rumors and theories surfaced about the missing train. Some believed it had fallen victim to a time anomaly, entering a kind of portal that led it to an unknown dimension. Others thought the train was haunted, and that those passengers were doomed to wander forever. Decades passed, and the disappearance of the Zanetti became a historical mystery. But in the 1950s, witnesses in Japan reported something unbelievable. One summer afternoon, several passengers on a nearby Tokyo train line saw, for a split second, an old train appear on the tracks. It was a luxurious train with early 20th century cars and decor, and it vanished in a flash of white light. They described the passengers as haunted, their faces stiff with expressions of horror, as if frozen in time. After the event, some witnesses claimed the train looked exactly like the Zanetti. Since then, the missing train has been sighted in various locations around the globe, appearing and disappearing inexplicably, always leaving witnesses filled with dread. Experts believe the train, along with its passengers, is caught in an eternal loop, destined to wander tunnels and tracks worldwide, never reaching a destination. The train of lost children. In 1903, tragedy struck a small railway town in rural Russia. A passenger train derailed on a bridge, and several cars plunged into the frozen river below. Most passengers escaped, but some cars, including one filled with children, sank into the ice, dragging them into the freezing waters. None of the children survived, and their bodies were never recovered. Since then, train engineers and passengers report hearing strange sounds when passing that section at night. On foggy nights, people claim to hear childish laughter, followed by muffled cries and pleas for help. The sounds are so clear that many railroad workers avoid the area at night. On one occasion, an engineer passing the spot with his night train reported seeing children running along the tracks, seemingly calling for help. He stopped the train and went to investigate, but found no one. When he returned to the train, he noticed small, wet handprints on the windows and walls of the car, as if the children had tried to get in. Locals believe these sounds and sightings are the spirits of children who cannot find peace, condemned to relive that tragic night. Engineers and passengers avoid passing there whenever possible, fearing that encountering these lost souls may bring bad luck or even condemn their train to a similar accident. The girl on the empty platform. In 1987, in a small town in northern Scotland, a young man named Liam was returning from a party. He decided to catch the night train back to his town, which passed through an isolated, nearly deserted stretch at night. While waiting, he saw a sad, pale-looking young woman in a white dress standing on the platform, staring at the tracks. She seemed to be crying and occasionally looked at Liam with a look of despair. Intrigued, he tried to approach her and ask if she needed help, but before he could say anything, she turned and stepped onto the tracks, disappearing into the darkness. When the train finally arrived, Liam boarded, still thinking about the young woman. The train traveled through the dark path, and when he reached his destination, he saw to his shock the same young woman on the platform, looking at him with the same despairing eyes. When he shared the story, locals revealed that the girl was a known spirit in the area. Decades before, a young woman had taken her own life there, throwing herself onto the tracks after receiving tragic news about her fiancé. Since then, she has been seen on the platform, always with the same empty eyes, as if waiting for someone who will never return. Some say that seeing the girl on the platform is an omen of death, and Liam spent years looking over his shoulder, fearing that his time was coming.